So these are the 10 best directors of all time according to science. And I mean that literally. I mean, everybody has an idea of who the best is, what the best means, but no one's defined it. I defined it by 4 measurements. It's a score out of 100, and it involved me scoring 8,000 movies. And after all that data, first place came down to, 8/100ths of a point. So this does come from a formula, so don't blame me when there are some directors who may not have been on your list show up. But this is science, you can't really argue with it. Here is the machine. 70% of the score comes from audience ratings, not critics, audience. 35% to Letterboxd ratings, and 35% is IMDb ratings. Why did I use both? Letterboxd has more of a artsy film kind of vibe to it, still pretty close to IMDb, which has just been around for a little longer. I think they're statistically 93% similar, because one person's rating is an opinion, but when you gather millions of them, it becomes more like data. So, science. The other 30% comes from, did they actually show up to watch it? Put your money where your mouth is. How much financial success did the film have? 15% is how much money the film made, and the other 15% is how efficient it made money, what the ROI was. We gotta reward films that become cultural sensations and reward films like Obsession that deliver an incredible ROI on their production. Now, 250 directors qualified for this list because you had to have at least 7 films. If you had more than 7 films, I took your best 7 films and took the average from that. What we're doing is we're taking directors at their best and putting them against each other in the arena of who is the best. I didn't know how to word that better. Science. So hopefully some of your favorite directors are on this list, and if you don't know some of the people I name, maybe I can teach you something. Make you a fan of the auteurs. Auteurs. It's a fun word. Auteur. At number 10, Billy Wilder. Now my formula doesn't take into account Oscars. Like I said, we're not here because of critics. But Billy Wilder won 6 Oscars, and that's the most on this list. I want you to look at this office. It goes on forever. It doesn't. The desk shrinks as it goes back, and the people get smaller and smaller. The people way in the back rows are cardboard cutouts on wires. Wilder said that the back rows were shorter actors, while his art director said, yeah, we call them children. Children are typically shorter. This formula does take into account inflation, but even with inflation, his films couldn't necessarily reach that gap to get him higher than 10th on the list. So number 9 on the list is Alfred Hitchcock. Some of you thought he was gonna be higher on this list. If you looked up in the dictionary the word director, you might see a photo of Alfred Hitchcock. Though he never won an Oscar for Best Director, he was nominated 5 times. He was given an honorary Oscar in which he returned the favor with 5 words. Thank you, very much indeed. James Cameron beats Martin Scorsese by 1/1000th of a point. It's hard to compete with that many billion-dollar films. Scorsese's best rated film on this list is The Departed, then Taxi Driver, then Shutter Island. Goodfellas is right there with Shutter Island too. Scorsese might be in your top 5 opinionated list, but when science is down to it, Cameron takes the lead. Now, I might have just made you mad, but we gotta remember James Cameron. Cameron didn't just create these films, he built worlds. So frame by frame, Scorsese probably would overtake this. But according to science, building billion-dollar franchises, that matters as a director. Also, James Cameron isn't like Michael Bay. These films are very high ranked and a lot of Oscars won, so chill with that. Who said anything about we were just counting live action films? Hayao Miyazaki is at 6. 2 girls wait at a bus stop in the rain at night. That's the scene. Water coming off an umbrella as we wait and wait. That image existed 10 years before the film did. That's what he drew first. At number 6, we have him as a director and as an artist. Also, his films make a lot of money. So, you know, that's why he's number 6. Number 5, we have a director that can make you feel ill. Stanley Kubrick. Listen to the floorboard of this shot. It's loud, it's muffled. Legend has it that Stanley Kubrick thought this sounded really bad. And you can't really change Kubrick's mind. He's also known for doing shots over and over and over again. But someone who could change his mind was Werner Herzog. If we were making a list of the top 10 coolest directors of all time, he'd be up there. But he convinced Stanley Kubrick that it sounded really cool. For those who are cinephiles, they would put Kubrick at probably number 1, probably number 2, somewhere in there. But for this list, it's not just for the cinephiles. Science takes into account the public opinion, and The Shining is not for everyone. Neither is Full Metal Jacket, though they are great films. Stanley Kubrick knew how to control a frame like nobody else. But the director at number 4 controlled 3 films at the same time. He is this high on the list for directing a trilogy that statistically will never be recreated again. The stats. The films in 20 years might be redone again. At number 4, we have the director of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Peter Jackson. Yes, above Stanley Kubrick. Okay, so this is the thing. I thought about adding another rule when I was creating this list, and it was that you could only take 1 or 2 films from the same franchise or same trilogy. So Peter Jackson would only get 2 Lord of the Rings films and 2 Hobbit films. Some other directors on this list would be impacted as well, and Peter Jackson would go from 4 to 15th. But he made 3 films. He produced the greatest trilogy of all time. Both the audience rating and financial success are in the top 10 for all 3 of the films. Now, sure, he made King Kong, and that wasn't liked by a bunch of people. The Hobbit films weren't loved as much because of the CGI, but they did pretty well. If we're taking directors at their best, Peter Jackson is number 4, and that's according to science. And at number 3 is Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino writes scenes like no one else. Inglourious Basterds is a film that made me want to make films. He writes original characters and gets incredible performances, and also is just a unique character. He has stated that he only wants to make 10 films, and he's at 9. So we've been waiting quite a while for him to get his 10th film out. Don't know why he's making that rule, but you know, to each their own. Now the largest gap is between number 3 and number 2. We jumped from 77.5 to 84.3. And at number 2, the man I've made the most videos on, Christopher Nolan. He's made blockbusters on experimental concepts over and over again. In my opinion, if one of your worst films is Tenet, you have a pretty awesome career. His recent film, The Odyssey, does sneak in as his 7th film here. Even if we didn't count it for recency bias or whatnot, he still would have a pretty commanding lead in being 2nd. Christopher Nolan did lose to a man who has made arguably more bad films than anyone else on this list, but is the greatest director according to science. And that, you probably guessed it, is the man, the myth, the legend, Steven Spielberg. With creating some of the best war films of all time and sci-fi films of all time, from thriller to drama, he is the inspiration of all filmmakers. He has made the most films out of everyone on this list. He himself talks about making 1 film for the studio and 1 film for himself. I'm sure out of the best 7, they were all the ones he made for himself. Now, you might not want money involved in all, and so what I did is I made you a website. It's got my formula and it's got other formulas involved too. You can see what best directors were with just ratings or just financially. I'll link that below so you can mess around with it. Because I know there are filmmakers like Bregman and Tarkovsky, international filmmakers that didn't have an opportunity to make blockbuster films. Believe me, my personal list would be different, but I do think it matters that if I were to pull someone out from the street and say, have you seen Stalker by Andrei Tarkovsky? They're gonna say no. And if I showed them Stalker, they might not like it. This scientific study was of success. If you were a studio or you wrote a script, what director would you want to direct it? My guess is it's more close to this list. the brand, the name of the director has built over a career they have earned. So yes, Azu cutting to a vase is cinematically brilliant. Kurosawa is the inspiration to all these filmmakers, but we can't argue with science. And if you did want to argue with science, I would suggest you can do it here in the comments of this video. I will be defending my work. Would love to hear your top 3 or 5 directors. Don't make it so long with top 10. That's just a lot. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe, making more every week. Peace. Thanks.